The Houthis in northern Yemen say they're fighting for their rights, but the central Yemeni government and that of neighboring Saudi Arabia say the rebels are fighting on behalf of Iran. Is a local insurrection turning into a proxy war between the region's strongest powers? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Mike Hanna. The conflict in northern Yemen continues to rage, the government deploying forces to curb an uprising by Houthi rebels. In recent days, fears of escalation as neighbouring Saudi Arabia says it will enforce a buffer zone inside northern Yemen to keep the rebels away from the border. But in apparent support of the Shia fighters, the Iranian government has expressed its deepest concern, calling on the Organisation of Islamic Conference to intervene. And in the Yemeni capital, opposition figures are warning that the local conflict could have ramifications far beyond the country's borders. This report from Hashim al-Bara in Sana'a.
Houthi fighters chanting anti-US and Israel slogans. In this video, they are showcasing what they say are spoils of their war with the Saudis. A dramatic turn of a conflict that started 5 years ago and originally pitted the Yemeni government against the Shia rebels. Saudi Arabia and Yemen accuse Iran of using the Houthis to expand its influence in the predominantly Sunni Gulf. Accusations dismissed by Tehran, which issued a rare warning to Saudi Arabia to stay out of the conflict. Amid the claims and counterclaims, people here in the capital Sana'a fear their country is being dragged into a bigger conflict which may have far-reaching consequences on the region.
There is no proof that Iran is involved in Yemen, but Saudi Arabia is pounding Yemeni towns and violating our sovereignty.
Over the past few years, Yemenis have witnessed all sorts of problems. A secessionist movement in the south, a rebellion in the north, and an active al-Qaeda. Now they face yet another threat to their future, an internal struggle some are calling a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, in which Yemen will pay the price. Saudi Arabia's fear of a Shia rebellion that may spill across its border is the main reason why it is launching a border offensive in northern Yemen. The Saudis say they will push ahead with airstrikes and bombardments until the Houthis are pushed back beyond a buffer zone 10 kilometers deep in Yemen. In this strategic Red Sea port of Midi, a few days ago, the government says it intercepted a ship. They allege it was carrying weapons from Iran destined for the Houthis. Now, the Saudi Navy and Yemeni Coast Guards are tightening the noose around armed smugglers and suspicious ships. Iran has offered to be a mediator in the conflict, but the Yemeni government has rejected the offer as a meddling into the country's affairs. Yemen reiterates the war in Sana'a is a local issue between a legitimate government and an outlawed rebellion. Ahmed al-Kibsi comes from a family of Zaydi scholars. The Houthis are Zaydis, but he thinks the rebels are doing the bidding of Iran.
Yemen is facing a crisis. There is a foreign agenda in Sana'a and also in the provinces of the south. There are countries that are not happy with us being united and strong, and there is a wider plot to split nations.
Ahmed al-Baghashi is an expert on the Houthis. Although he believes the Shia rebels are inspired by Iran, he denies any alliance between the two. He also dismisses Saudi allegations the Houthis have links with al-Qaeda.
One of the strange things you hear these days is that al-Qaeda and the Houthis are cooperating with each other. And this is what the Saudis and the Yemenis are trying to sell as fact. But we know that the Houthis practice a radical form of Shiism and that al-Qaeda is a radical form of Salafist Sunnism. How can they come together?
With the strained Saudi-Iranian relations, an intensifying offensive and a Houthi resolve, hopes of a political solution are fading, exacerbating the fears of the people. Hashim al-Bara, Al Jazeera, Sana'a.
Well, joining us today are our guests in Sana'a, Abdel-Ghani al-Iryani, an independent political analyst. In Jeddah, Hussein Shibokshi, a columnist for Ashaq al-Awsat newspaper. And in Tehran, we're joined by Professor Zadek Zibakalam, Professor of Political Science at Tehran University. Let's start in Jeddah. Hussein Shaboksi, does the Saudi government truly see events in northern Yemen as a threat to its national security?
The Saudi government sees this as a very serious and almost catastrophic development of events. For a while now, we have seen, as Saudis, some serious deterioration in the security situation down there. There's been human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms smuggling, people coming in, infiltrating from al-Qaeda, and the latest Houthi attacks on a Saudi patrol border. These are all very serious events that are threatening directly the stability of the Saudi border, and actions needed to be taken.
Now let's go to Tehran and Professor Zibakalam. There have been comments, speculation of Iranian involvement, both from the Saudi Arabian side and also from sources within Yemen itself. Any basis whatsoever to those claims?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There aren't any direct or indirect Iranian involvement in the Yemeni problem. Of course, there have been claims both by the government in Yemen and also by Saudis. However, I must add that no one should expect the Islamic regime to be indifferent towards the fate of the Shiites throughout the world. For the same reason as the Israelis are not indifferent towards the fate of Jews wherever they live, by the same token, no one must expect the Islamic regime in Iran to be indifferent towards the fate of their Shiite brethren wherever they live. In Lebanon, in Yemen, or wherever. And Iran has never said that I will be indifferent towards the fate of Shiite wherever they are.
But there is a difference and a line between concern, as you express, and direct involvement, is there not?
As I said, there aren't any proof by independent sources of the Islamic regime's involvement in the conflict. All the claims that we have had have been by the Saudis and by the Yemeni regime. No independent organization, no independent body has verified that Iran is militarily involved. Iran is supplying arms and ammunition to the rebels, or in any other way Iran is assisting the Houthi rebels.
Well, let's go to the view from inside Yemen itself, and Abdel-Ghani al-Iryani. What is the view from there? Do you see outside interference in what is at the moment should be an internal political dispute?
Unfortunately, the government continues to make the claims without providing evidence of formal official Iranian intervention, and I am not convinced that the government is directly involved. However, it has been known for years now that the Houthis receive assistance from religious organizations both within the region and without, and that includes Iran as well. I'd like to point out that my colleague in Tehran is being caught in this unhealthy rhetoric of sectarian strife. There is no need for Iran to worry about the Shia of Yemen. The Shia of Yemen are in good shape, and there is no problem that regards their religious freedoms. This conflict is political, and it's driven by extremist ideology.
Well, let's go back to the view from Jeddah there, from Hussein Shaboksi. We heard there the statement that this crisis is political. Do you share that opinion?
I don't at all, because what your colleague, our colleague from Tehran just mentioned, that the Iranians' mandate is to support the Shia around the world. Funny, because I thought the official name of that regime is called the Islamic Republic, not the Shia Republic of Iran. By niching the Islamic world into such us versus them, it gives a license to kill. It is exactly the same methodology that backed Hezbollah in Lebanon to go wild and ballistic and attack the Sunnis in Beirut and the Druze in the mountains in a matter of 2 days, creating havoc and massacring people innocently. It is the same license to kill that has been given to the Houthis in Yemen under the beautiful, politically correct and politically seductive we support the Shias around the world.
Professor Zebakalam there, if I could just interrupt you, saying, strong words there, license to kill. Your reaction to that?
Mike, I must say that this has been the declared policy of the Islamic regime, not only to support the Shiite when they are hurt, when they are oppressed by the majority government, wherever they are, but it has been a declared policy of the Islamic regime to support Muslims. Now I ask Mr. Shabushki and I ask Mr. al-Iryani, do they not see the support, the solid support that Tehran is giving to Palestinian, to Hezbollah and to Hamas? Now those organizations, those people, the Palestinian radical, they are not Shiite, but nevertheless Iran tends to support them. You cannot say that
I would like the opinion of the people who are living in the West Bank. I would like to get the opinion of the Palestinians who live in the West Bank, if they agree with what you said or not.
Well, let's
if they believe in what has happened between Hamas and the Fatah faction, the rift was not created by Iran.
Well, we're getting into outside questions here. We're talking about North Yemen, but the question was put by the professor, and let's actually put it to Abdel-Ghani al-Iryani in Sana'a. What is your answer to that specific question that was put there?
I don't think it's relevant what Iran does elsewhere. We are happy that the government of Iran is not interfering in our domestic affairs at this time, and I am concerned that as we continue to claim that this is happening, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I hope that the Iranians will stand the line of non-intervention in Yemen as requested, as declared by Mr. Muttaqi.
Well, let's try and keep this back to the subject itself and perhaps take a look at the cause of this ongoing conflict. The vast majority of Yemen's 23 million people are Muslim, approximately 60% of whom are Sunni, the rest Shia. The Houthis are from the Zaydi sect of Shia Islam and comprise the bulk of the population in northern Yemen, where they're seeking greater autonomy. They claim they're discriminated against by the central Yemeni government and argue their actions are taken in self-defense. The ultimate goal as rebel movement is not defined, but the rebels do insist that the government has marginalized them through unfair distribution of the country's wealth. They've alluded to being open to renewed dialogue, but so far the peace deals signed between government and rebels in recent years have failed in implementation. So having looked at this, let's go to Abdel-Ghani al-Iryani and ask, what in your view is the central point, the central issue of this ongoing conflict?
It can be summarized in 3 words. Miscalculation, both on the part of the regime and on the part of the Houthis, corruption, and profiteering. And in the past, we have had peace agreements with the Houthis that had brought this war to an end, and unfortunately, beneficiaries from the war in the field started it again from either side, from the Houthi side or from the government side. This war can be stopped tomorrow. There is no reason for it to continue when the political will is present and strong.
Hussein Shivoksi, do you agree with that? This war can be stopped tomorrow? What's your view from the other side of the border?
I would like to challenge some of the statements that have been made. I don't know how much today the Houthis are truly Zaydis. We are seeing in a very wild Darwinian manner an evolution of a sect that has been politicized. Some fangs and teeth and claws have been added to this group that is truly making it an animal outside its cage, attacking Yemen first and then being utilized for other political agendas. We don't know the extent. Is this a separatist movement? Is this merely a puppet arm, an extension of the Republican Guard, of the Iranian Secret Service? We don't know the extent of that. I would like to feel that it can be ended politically. I would like to think maybe it can be contained if things are put into order. But I think now we are seeing an evolution in this sect that is taking it beyond its traditional Zaydi roots.
What, in your opinion, would be the motivation?
Well, there are new rules on the ground. Iran has seen its success in that model in Palestine, in Lebanon, and obviously in the granddaddy of it all in Iraq. And they believe they can create pockets of influence elsewhere. Why not keep trying what has worked in the past?
Professor Sadek Zabakalam, there we hear a view of, once again, direct Iranian involvement, mentioning other areas as well. What would you put in defense of this?
Mike, unfortunately, we have a very well-established habit, although I don't like it, and that is people like me, people like Shabovsky, people like al-Iryani, we tend to dismiss, we tend to evade, we tend to hide the real causes of the problem. The real causes of the Houthi uprising is not the fact that Iran is supporting them, Iran is seeking a confrontation with Saudi Arabia, etc., etc. The real reason, the underlying reason for the Houthi uprising is the corruption, injustice, and lack of political process inside that country, inside Yemen, to take care of its people. Unfortunately, we are in a habit of blaming outsider, blaming outside interference for our problems. The Islamic regime does it as well. It is about time that people like me, people like Shabovsky, people like al-Iryani, that we realize that our problems are internal, and we stop blaming Iran, United States, Israelis, Saudis, etc., etc., for causing the problem. Right now, it is the Saudis' jets that are bombing the villages and innocent people in Yemen. And now Mr. Shabovsky keep blaming Iran for interference. Who has sent arms? Who has sent troops? Who has sent tanks? Who had sent its infantry in Yemen? Is it Saudi Arabia or is it Iran?
Hussein Shabovsky, I'll let you answer that.
Fine. Cause or effect, this is the issue, isn't it? Who has sent arms? Who has sent military? Well, let's go back to the creation of the very strange place called the Red Crescent Hospital in Saada by Iranian money, and was supplied entirely to support the Houthis, and arms were traced there. Military advisories did come from Tehran to support the Houthis in the beginning. Mohammad Ja'fari, a very key and important executive in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, created a plan called Josh Yemen Hal. It's basically Yemen, Happy Yemen in Arabic or in Persian. And initial budget was created for that by $4 million. All these are stated facts by Yemeni governments who have said and witnessed these events taking place. That was the early signs of interference. What we are seeing today, the form that is taking place in the Saudi border, is a defensive mechanism. Saudis need to protect their borders. They have been attacked. A Saudi soldier has been killed. More than 29 Saudi soldiers have been injured. That was all created by the interference of the Houthis through their support by, they were aided by the Iranians at the beginning. Well, yes, I do agree that there are a lot of internal problems, but that never gives the right for an external country to ignite the fire within.
Well, Abdel-Ghani, al-Iryani, you've heard two opinions there. One of a long-term strategy of outside involvement. The other opinion that the claims of outside involvement are in fact a red herring, are in fact an attempt to delegitimize what is essentially a domestic political dispute by a rebel group within a country. Which side, which argument do you come down on?
Well, I'm not aware of the details that Mr. Shabovsky presented, and I think it is very important to avoid war propaganda and focus on what is really credible. I'm not convinced that the government of Iran is at this time involved in the war and the conflict in Sa'da. But I'm concerned that if we keep repeating this, that the religious faction within the Iranian government will prevail over cooler heads and will force the Iranian government to interfere directly. This is very dangerous for Yemen. But on the Saudi side, while I recognize the Saudi right to defend their border, the declaration that they will create a 10-kilometer zone as they call military zone in the Yemeni side of the border is very disconcerting. About half the population of Sa'da live within or in the proximity of that zone, and depopulating the population of Sa'da by bombs is very, very dangerous. I appeal to the Saudis to take the human cost into consideration.
Well, perhaps a way forward here is to discuss solutions, and obviously the critical issue is the solution an internal domestic one, or is it actually a regional solution? Because it is an answer to this question that may actually define the nature of this ongoing conflict itself. Well, let me put that question to you, Professor Zibakalam. Do you think the resolution is internal, or is there a regional resolution to this?
I think, Mike, there are both elements of the problem needing the internal solution, as well as we have to seek a regional solution, because it's not only in Yemen that Tehran and Riyadh are on head-on clash. You see Tehran and Riyadh adopting different course in Lebanon, over Palestine, in the Persian Gulf, and unfortunately it goes to the fundamental question that unfortunately from our point of view in Tehran, Saudi Arabia is the staunch ally of United States. Now, of course, I don't mean interference in Saudi affairs. Saudi government is most welcome to choose its ally, whoever they want to choose. But we mustn't forget that United States hasn't played a constructive role in the Persian Gulf region, in the region as a whole. Now, when Saudi allies itself with United States, obviously it is bound to cause problems for other countries and other powers in the region. Perhaps if Saudis could have acted more independent from United States, that would have been a starting point as far as regional solution is concerned.
Hussein Shiboksi, what's your response to that?
Mixing the cards has always been an Iranian speciality. The United States has nothing to do with what is happening in Yemen. We all know, I'm taking the words right out of your mouth, Mr. Zadeh. You said, let's concentrate on the internal issues. There are problems that the parties who are concerned need to deal with. We need to address the issues. The support that is going to the Houthis needs to be stopped. The Yemeni government needs to take responsibility to address its local issues. The issues that rightfully so were raised by Mr. al-Iryani, corruption and a weak central government and security and justice, all these significant and important developmental matter in any government, let alone Yemen, needs to be taken very seriously, because the cost is getting higher and higher. The social cost is very much dramatic at the moment. But the Saudis, again, are caught into this and sucked into it by seeing the bulk of the problem being transferred to their borders. They really had no option but to act.
Thank you so much to our guests for joining us here on Inside Story, Abdel-Ghani al-Iryani in Sana'a. And we have Hussein Shiboksi, a columnist for Al-Sharq Al-Awsat in Jeddah, and Professor Zadeh Zibakalam at Tehran University. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.